If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Welcome to the My Name is Human Earth2.io podcast, brought to you by Earth2News.com. My name is Human Hazy.
And my name is Human Kangy.
And we have a special guest. He's not really human. He's more like a alien flipper. We have Mysor on the show today. How you doing today, Mysor?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm doing very great.
So where are you from? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Mysor, as you said. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a pizza baker in Earth 1. I have my own pizza restaurant. In Earth 2, I don't know how I rolled into it or why. I do know how, but I don't know why. But I'm known as one of the big flippers in the game. So buying properties and selling them.
So how did you find out about Earth 2?
I ran into it, and I've had to look this up a couple of times by now, but I ran into it early January because of a local sort of online newspaper that's only in my city but quite famous here. They did an article on it, and I saw it, and I got quite interested because it showed that people were buying up the local football stadium and stuff like that, but didn't really think much of it. And I think a day later, coincidentally, I saw an ad on Facebook, or maybe because I did saw the article and the algorithm showed it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably not coincidence. But I clicked it and just thought, yeah, well, why not? I want to buy my house and I want to buy the restaurant just in case this someday grows big. And that was only my first intention, and then it spiraled out of control from there.
So 2 interesting points. Big Brother's always watching.
Absolutely.
I.e. Facebook. And like it's amazing how Facebook will work too. I'll search the internet for something, and all of a sudden ads are popping up about the thing I searched for. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that you actually found it on a media publication that's like not really international one. It's just kind of something local. So that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, and it is local, but it still has like between 70,000 and 100,000 views per article. So you really saw my city get bought up quite quickly after that article as well, which was funny to see.
Yeah, I think I'm so used to hearing stories where people heard about this through more new age, unconventional, like, I found out about it ultimately through a TikToker was my source of information. So yeah, that Hazy does call out an interesting point. You found out about it through a kind of conventional, traditional sort of source. Definitely. Not like an old-timey paper newspaper, but still.
Yeah, like I found out just through on Twitter through an NFT buddy. So
yeah, we're bringing in people from all around the world and through all different formats. And to call yourself, a major flipper, Mysor, I think you may be understating it, because I've got the leaderboards pulled up, and you're 3 right now, so pretty good.
Yeah. It is. I always feel like I have to give this disclaimer. The leaderboards, in my opinion, are completely off. Like, they're fun for me because of the way I play the game, so to say. But obviously, it's called net worth, and based on net worth, I shouldn't even be in the top 50 probably.
Yeah, so it's based off of how much money you've invested, and because you keep flipping, your amount keeps going up because you keep investing money. Yeah.
Well, it's great advertisement for the Mysor brand, if nothing else. But having your name way up on the leaderboard,
for sure,
right? Even if
it definitely helps.
Yeah, gives you a little rep when negotiating deals on the market, I'm sure. But
I'm easily found by people.
Yeah.
It's
So
for sure.
I'm not quite the flipper you are, but I did do quite a bit of flipping this week. We had and I'm sure I know you took advantage of it too, a lot more than I did because you found out about it before even I did. Kangy, on the other hand, chose Wednesday to sleep in, which was not a good day to sleep in.
I did. I slept into a whopping 7 a.m., which, since I'm on the West Coast, that was enough to miss the Wednesday country chaos, or as Hazy's been calling it, the Great Land Rush. Great Land Rush of 421.
Right, and it was a great land rush. So basically, what happened for me, I was talking with Meta about, I don't even remember what it was about, but I popped in the gen chat real quick before I was going to leave for work. Well, needless to say, people are saying, this country's available, this country's available. So I go look, and sure enough, you could buy class 1 property for less than 20 cents a tile. I ended up paying between 20 and 25 for most of mine. And I loaded up. I put in $500. Countries are still open. I put in another 200. Countries are still open. I'm like, all right. I said I'm going to be late for work today, so I put in another 500. So I ended up doing 1,200 total. I did get stuck with a couple class 2s just because they flipped the switch from over 100K. But I know Mysor, you said you got like $8,000 worth or 8,000 tiles.
I got about 16,500 tiles.
Wow.
So
wow.
I was probably the 3rd or 4th biggest buyer, I guess.
So
that was really lucky.
How did you find out about it?
I was actually at work, so I was doing the prep. I was making the dough for my pizza place and stuff. And this is where I highly believe in having friends in a community like this. I have a couple of people who we share info with, and in this case, it was Les. He's Let's Go Luck. He's often in the Discord as well. He DM'd me that he got it from somewhere else as well, and I immediately went on my phone. He DM'd me a link, so he said, "Just buy next to this," and I started buying.
So you were very early. You were late for work too, huh?
Yeah, I was at work, so I was lucky that I was working with my best buddy, because I was half an hour distracted, basically.
Yeah,
and he got very annoyed with me, but I treated him to a bottle of limoncello in the end, so he was all good after work. But nice. Yeah, I was lucky. Like, if I would have been home, I probably would have bought 50K tiles because I had the liquidity for it. I had about 10K on my account that I could spend, so I would have bought way more. But I'm actually kind of happy I didn't, because, yeah, give other people some space to buy as well, I guess. I mean, buying from my phone was very slow and tedious. I think I started buying.
You bought off your phone. Dang.
Yeah. So I've managed to buy that much off my phone. That shows how early I got the notification that they were open. Yeah, I only bought in 2 countries as well. Like, I only bought in Martinique and
Mayotte.
What's the other one called? Yeah, Mayotte.
Yeah, and I noticed that you got a ton of 750s. I mean, that was the majority of your focus. So yeah, you did. Yeah, I'd say you did pretty well, Mysor.
Yeah, the only non-750s I got was actually where I fat fingered and I thought I had a 750 and pressed buy.
Yeah, I actually did 2 one-tile properties by doing, because I actually started driving to work, and then I saw a couple other countries. I was reading the Discord while I was driving, which I don't recommend doing. And
don't try it at home, kids.
People were talking about other countries, so I actually pulled over on the side of the road and started buying on my phone on the side, and I fat fingered a couple one-tile properties, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think when Wake Island got linked to me, because of being on my phone, I couldn't find actual land, and I didn't want to buy sea tiles, so I actually skipped that one. That was the one that got linked to me where there was still C1 I could have bought, but I was like, nah, I'm not going to buy sea tiles, give other people room, and I've bought enough. So I stopped when that one was found.
Yeah, and we've mentioned Martinique and Mayotte. You mentioned Wake Island, which was part of the U.S. minor outlying islands. So there are a number of islands that are part of that quote-unquote nation.
Baker Island, Howland Island, and I think one other.
Midway, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, Midway.
And then, and I'm sure I'm butchering these names, but then Reunion and Wallace and Futuna were the other two. So we had 5 total. For those listening at home that may be curious about what exactly opened up, those were the big 5. And so you, Mysor, you got in Martinique and Mayotte, and Hazy, where were you able to buy?
All 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, and only through the generosity of Hazy was I able to get a few C1 tiles in Wallace and Futuna, but I'm doing just fine. So I think the next thing to discuss is what exactly happened here? What is the explanation for this?
So originally speculation was that this was just a planned surprise release, but I never believed that. I always thought, yeah, something happened, because it came just after they did an update. They had just fixed the bidding, the 1 cent bid, although they fixed it kind of backwards. You have to have it disabled for it to work correctly.
Right.
They fixed the notifications page, which was a blessing. So it came right after they had done an update. So apparently when they did that update, something else got updated that caused those countries to get released. But speculation at the time was it was a planned release, and this is how they were going to do it from now on. But it turns out, and Shane confirmed this yesterday, he came in the Discord, and we'll talk about this later, but he did confirm it was an accident by a developer and that they closed it off as soon as they found it.
Yeah, because the rumor going around in the Discord was that it may have had something to do with, you know, the map box end of things, but it does sound like it was, you know, ultimately on the Earth 2 end, and I'm hoping that we can open those countries back up soon, personally, because, you know, it's kind of like the cat's out of the bag. We might as well allow for some, because right now we have some really artificially marked up properties, right? Because you can't buy in these places now. The only way to get tiles is the market. Which
is why I flipped them real quick, even though I think holding probably might work out better in the long run. But I was taking advantage of the hype.
Right, because right now I think that if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the countries are frozen at around like 35 cents a tile, kind of right around where, you know, just after where Class 1 transitions to Class 2. But you're usually seeing the Class 1s on the marketplace listed for closer to 60, 80 cents, even more than that per tile. So it's, you know, as far as, because the land tile is frozen, everything's listed for like basically 100% over quote unquote new tile value.
Yeah. Have you flipped any mice, or are you kind of holding them for now?
I didn't want to flood the market, and I told the other people who bought a lot as well, like, don't list it all at one time, because it would just deflate the value. But I'm also just like, these, because of buying them this cheap and not knowing, especially now with all the reworks, how Essence will work, this was basically a very cheap Essence or resource farm for me. So I decided to only list one of each country at a premium price that is like 3 or 4 times what I bought it for. And if I sell those, I'll check if I want to list more or not. Probably is going to depend on if other sales are going well or not, etc., etc. Which runs a bit into how I build up my portfolio. Like, yeah.
So what do you think about the way they? I mean, it was an accidental release, but compared to the UAE, do you like this better, or do you prefer the countdown?
The thing is, with the countdown, I knew the countdown wasn't going to work. Like, I got lucky with UAE as well. I bought about 6 properties there, like 4 C1 750s and 2 C2 at very cheap.
Yeah.
So personally, I couldn't complain for my personal luck, and then I flipped a bunch more very soon after. But the bad thing about that was that it was so apparent, it was so clear that it was going to bug out. It was going to, like, the UI of the website isn't built for that. I mean, if you can't properly run notifications, and thank God they work again, then I wasn't putting full trust in the fact that this launch would go smooth and the website wouldn't have struggles with that. Like, either with prices bugging, or I just knew something would happen, which happened actually, the prices bugging. Ayman, I think, stayed at 10 cents until the third reopen. even though it was C2 already, you could still buy C2 plots, which I did for $75, a 750 tile. It was C2, but still 10 cents. So a lot of shit bugged there, which I expected. It's too early in the progress of the build-up of the game to do a release that way with that many people stressing the server. However, I didn't think when this happened that it was a surprise release. I thought it was a mistake, or that Mapbox accidentally finally labeled these as countries, and therefore, like the speculation was in the Discord, I kind of saw that as an option. But yeah.
But if they were going to do this in the future, do you prefer the kind of just release it with no notice? I think is the thing that we're talking about.
The thing is, I think if you do that with smaller countries like this, and there isn't that many left, that's actually quite good, because it gives everyone an equal opportunity. People can't set up 100 tabs. They can't, trick the system. And it actually stimulates people to build trust in each other of warning each other, which is a lot of the active flippers actually do that. Like, it sounds like flippers would be competition of each other, but we're actually, most of us are friends, and we chat and we give each other tips and tricks. And the same with this. Like, I got warned, even though I was at work. I would have never seen it. I wasn't on Discord or anything, but I got DMs telling me to go for it. So I think the surprise release for smaller countries is great. However, let's say Saudi Arabia or Israel gets released. I think if you do that as a surprise, and there's a lot of people who really want to have a spot in there, I think that's a bit cruel, because you can't expect people to sit behind the computer 24/7 waiting for releases to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a good take on it, because I mean, because of my poor dog getting sick during UAE and just the whole UAE debacle, I didn't succeed really in either of these. So I guess I can be objective by just being a loser in the whole thing. That I did think that generally this went better, and I do agree that these smaller nations that don't have that sort of hype, or frankly that sort of population, we have a lot of folks that genuinely live in Israel or Saudi Arabia, and I think people should have an ability, at least an opportunity, to buy within their own country or their own city, whereas places like the US minor outlying islands, I believe, are there's no residents there. The only real appeal is how few land tiles there are. So I don't think that you're breaking a whole lot of hearts in the same way by releasing something like that, through this sort of unannounced way, as you would be for, like you mentioned, Saudi Arabia, Iran, something like that.
Yeah, and new land value is it's almost impossible to get the new land value to where, for instance, Dubai now is. So that sort of worth that new land value gives to a property, it's almost impossible to reach with small island nations like this.
Right. You can't expect that folks will continue to buy tiles once they are hitting multiple dollars per tile in the same way that you could a massively populated nation. Definitely makes sense. Well, I think that for future nation releases, then if it's like Tokelau, like I've been hoping for, maybe surprise drop it, but Saudi Arabia, I think the people want a little bit of a warning. But
yeah, and there's many ways of doing it, obviously. Like, I'm not saying a countdown is the best way. I'm not saying a surprise release. They could also staged release it, or make it so that everyone, at first, for the first hour or so, it's locked to one purchase per account. Or there's so many options they can, so many routes they can take.
That's an argument I've made in the past. I actually wrote an article about that, kind of saying, cap it for a certain amount of time and then open it up completely. That way you give everyone and both you and I have benefited from both UAE and this Mysor, but I think you and I both agree we wouldn't mind only being able to get 1,000 tiles if it meant everyone got some.
If you would have called me in the morning that the island launch happened, or mistake, whatever it's called, and you would have called me that morning and said you can get one 750 tile plot for 20 cents a tile, I would have immediately said, "Oh, cool, my day's made, man. That's a fun day. Fresh tiles in a new nation." I got a lot more, obviously, but if I would have been told I would just get one, because that's the maximum for the release, it would still have been an amazing day. It would have been good for the community. And I'd much rather have that than personal gains, because in the long run, we need a community to thrive. And my personal gains are fun for me, but yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I've always argued with these LAN releases is you want to make it to where everyone has the opportunity to get some cheap Class 1 tiles. That is exciting. It feels good.
Yeah, or even Class 2, like, because there was I read your article about that earlier, but there was a bit my issue with even if you stick it to one property, are you then not going to allow 750s? Because 130 750s already makes Class 1 be gone. So if 130 people have preloaded a 750, it's going to be on Class 2. So still, out of the thousands that might want to buy Israel, not everyone's going to get Class 1, but limited to one per property is still going to get them cheap. It's still going to be under $1 for everyone.
Yeah, I might even limit it to just 100 or 200 tiles instead of 750. But
I think I think technically that might be a bit harder to realize, putting those kind of limits on a sale.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, I come back to the part where they until recently couldn't get their notifications to work. So would they be able to put in those restrictions just for a single release? I mean, put the efforts into that.
Yeah, well, they've at least been able to, shut down entire countries for sale. So I would think that maybe they have a lever where they could do that. But you're right. It's easy to speculate on, or to just flatly say, oh, they could do this, and then maybe harder to actually implement such a thing. But obviously, in this case, it couldn't have been done because it was unplanned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think that we've covered the Wednesday country chaos enough. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it, especially as more nations roll out. But we've got Mysor here. We've got a great flipper. I think it's necessary to really focus today on, Mysor just generally. What have you been doing? I'm not asking you to share all your state secrets, but you've climbed.
I am.
We'll good cop, bad cop these secrets out of you. But yeah,
you don't really have to. Like, I've said this from day one that I started doing flipping. I'm sort of an open book when it comes to this.
So what got you to start flipping in the first place?
So like I said, quite early in January, I found out about Earth 2. I think the 11th of January, I did my first purchase. I can actually see that now. I have my transaction tab open. But and I just bought my house and some other stuff. And then I loaded up a little bit more money soon after on the 12th, so the day after, making the grand total of what I had spent to $130. And back then you still had, if you went to the marketplace, there you couldn't load per country. It was just 500 pages of market, not selected on discount, not selected on anything. I would just go through the pages, like go to page 300 and see if I could find something cheap. And I bought a couple of things that I found cheap that I would now class as very horrible properties, but whatever. Back then they were okay. And I would buy them and sell them a day after with like $2 profit. And I was like, whoa, okay, there's some money in this. And that's how the ball started rolling. And I think by the end of January, I was doing this 10 to 12 hours a day, keeping track of about 12 spreadsheets that I have of separate data. And
what kind of things were you tracking on the spreadsheets?
It started with just what I earned and spent on a day, just to sort of see a balance, as in where my liquidity was and what I had in my portfolio, because just showing your net worth or keeping track of that doesn't say, though, because that doesn't show your, dollars that you can still spend. Then I started to list countries that had the best discounts where they would still sell. So I have a list throughout the. Later I started doing that on a weekly basis, not daily anymore, but because the changes started to slow down a bit. But so countries that I thought were good selling countries, but you could still buy at a good discount to make a profit. And now it got a lot more detailed. So now it's where 750s are close to their market value, so a bit easier to sell compared to. So in which countries I have to be on the lookout for bigger properties for low tile price, and stuff like that. So I keep track of a lot. And a lot of this you can just find on like Earth 2 Stats and other websites, but I like to keep track of it in my own ways, so that at one glance of it, I know where I wrote what down and I can find it easily.
So one thing I did want to ask, when you're shopping around right now, compared to in January, you mentioned, getting $2 profits, and I'm imagining that you're probably targeting larger dollar amounts in your profits at this point. Are you really focusing your purchasing efforts on much larger plots now than you were back in January? Is it all like 750s?
No, I still take 20 cents profits if I have to. Like, I still buy one tiles. I still buy singles. Like, there's been other flippers that I've said this too. Like, they would explain how they now only buy elite landmarks and flip them for 1,000 profit each, but it takes them a week. I still try to do 100 sales a day if I could. Like, lately the market is too slow for that, but if I could, I still do 100 sales a day. I'd much rather get 100 sales of 20 cents profits a day and have a feeling of a productive day than sitting watching my screen for a week waiting for that one landmark to sell.
Yeah, and
I do both. I mean, yeah.
I was just going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That approach does make a lot of sense, strictly from the standpoint of what folks can afford, because that was, I'm not nearly as prolific or talented a flipper as you, but when I started in December, my big concern was once properties started crossing, like $100 was my initial personal guesstimate on what people would drop money on. Obviously, I was very wrong about how much folks were willing to spend. Enter the real Joker, but I still, trying to sell an individual landmark for that high amount. You're exactly right. You're not going to see very much liquidity. You're not going to be able. You have very little elasticity for changing your prices because you've really only got that one item that you can mess with, and you need the right buyer to come along, because how many folks are looking to drop $1,000 on a plot?
So when you're buying a property now, Mysor, what are you looking for? What's your criteria basically for, okay, I think I can flip this, I'm going to buy it. What do you look for?
So 750s, well, they slowed down now, but when everyone was waiting for the Phase 2 and Essence release, 750s were hot. So if you were able to sell 750s for under $500, so basically up to 65 cents a tile, 70 cents a tile, they would go like hot cinnamon rolls. That was a very easy sell. And if you find the right sellers into my direction, like old sleepy accounts who woke up, bought a lot of 750s for like 100, and you offered them 350, that was an easy $100 upmark. I bought them for 350, sold them for 450. That slowed down a lot now. Now what I noticed is a lot of people still slowed down in general a bit, because they always go in waves. Like an announcement comes out, there's this or this going to be added, market speeds up. Last week, when the notifications were fixed, the 2 days after that, market was great for me. Now, the last 2 days, not so much. So it goes in waves. And now I just try to focus on cheap tiles. So if I find tiles under 50 cents per tile, instant buy. I'll get them. And landmarks. For some reason, landmarks turned hot. I see the use when AR gets involved into the game. But other than that, like, they will get removed. The landmarks themselves won't be there. So
that's been my argument forever.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to hang on to them. Let's put it that way. Like, if I buy landmarks, I buy them to get a profit out of them. I see the benefit of having expensive properties in major cities with a high tile price, because people will eventually always go to that area and visit it. But specifically the landmark, I mean, most people won't know where the Eiffel Tower was. So unless you buy the Eiffel Tower and get the EPL on it, so the portal locator thing saying it was where the Eiffel Tower was, I don't know if it's going to be worth that much. Whereas Paris Central, it's going to have some sort of worth. People will visit the spot where Paris usually is.
But wouldn't that be a tremendous failure on the part of Earth 2 if you're able to get to only Paris, but not the things people actually do in Paris?
Well, you're right, and they might make it so you can, and especially if ever AR is put into the game, so artificial reality, people that are actually standing underneath the Eiffel Tower that will load up their Earth 2 and see what's built there in Earth 2. High traffic areas, I see a benefit for it. I'm just not 100% sure the amount you now pay for landmarks makes sense. Like it's out of how do you say that? The balance is off. So people are overpaying for landmarks compared to like maybe
right.
just the entrance. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, because I do like buying landmarks and things that are, quasi famous to actually famous, but I don't think I've ever bought any of them for anything other than like a stellar discount. Like I'll pick a landmark against farmland if they're similarly priced.
Definitely.
It's basically my
Yeah.
tiebreaker. But yeah, to pay an exorbitant amount simply to get a landmark for that purpose, I think is
But we could be off here, right? Like we could be
I
completely
resemble
off.
that remark.
Excuse me?
I resemble that remark.
You resemble it? Nice.
Well, I don't know. I've always been anti-landmark, but yeah, I spent $1,250 on 7 Vatican tiles last night.
Right. Well,
you were the man. I saw a sale happen, but it didn't click it, so I didn't know who it was.
Well, I'll say this, Hazy. I think that we've all discussed how different something like the Vatican is. I'm not including that in my larger discounted landmark comment I just made. I'm more talking about like China. Like today, for instance, I bought a part of and don't ask me why, of the second largest telescope in the world. And it was mostly because it was the cheapest China I could find, and it seemed like an interesting thing to buy versus like somebody's house. But yes, that satellite will be very gone by the time I'm actually, playing the game. So
one I did ask for some user questions, Mysor, and one question that I like is what type of properties that don't sell well in the marketplace right now? What struggles to sell?
Water tiles and properties with a very shitty shape. So let's say people who bought 50 tiles along a coastline, so they're actually on the beach, but they're spread in a thin 50 tile long line.
Yeah,
that's a really hard sell.
Yep, agree.
People who bought up a property in the middle of a city, like I see a property, it's called Berlin Central. I'm like, oh, nice. And then it's like 3 tiles there and 3, like in Willy Stream, we always call them sneeze tiles, as if someone sneezed their keyboards and pressed buy. Yeah. Those are really hard sells.
And what kind of properties do you think are undervalued?
I think actually what was mentioned earlier, like quiet farmland, still class 1. I still believe in the power of class 1, even if it's at a later stage just for vanity's sake. Like I believe people will always seek that, rarity. But like a class 1 750 nice square plot in the middle of the Congo jungle, which you now basically pay just the minimum tile price of the country for. So let's say that's 55 cents per tile. I believe that should be worth more than the minimum tile price in the country, because at some point that is going to be a really nice, quiet jungle plot, big one, class 1. So it's going to be rare to have that big of a nice square plot in the jungle. But for now, they're going for minimum prices. So I think they're undervalued for sure.
Yeah, don't disagree at all.
So we've talked a lot about your flipping so far, but is there anything that you like? What does Mysor consider a must hold? What are the things that are going to stick on your profile for perhaps years at a time, unless somebody comes in with a monster offer, of course?
I've only recently started holding, so that's a bit like a couple of fun buys that when I started my kind of like my house or my my restaurant and some other stuff like that. But other than that, I just recently started to buy a couple of more expensive properties in capital cities like Russia and stuff at either market value or little over, at which point there is no margin for me to sell them at a profit in current market. But I still bought them to hold because I see value in them later. but also I don't mind if I have to keep them until the game is playable. So basically, what my whole strategy is, because I'm not planning to withdraw or anything. I'm actually building a portfolio for the long run. So my whole strategy now is to buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell, but actually grow into a bigger tile count and get more interesting places. I think always I'll be able to sell any property if the profit on it is great enough. I wouldn't say no at any point. If I feel, let's say I have a 750 in Moscow and I feel someone bids me enough that I can buy two 750s of equal quality for it, then I'm going to do it.
Right. There's nothing that's unsellable, truly.
Yeah,
That's
my strategy completely. I have everything in my portfolio listed. The ones I want to hold, I mark up for a higher value.
Yeah, same here, definitely.
So it sounds like, yeah, capital cities, large plots, if you can get them truly central, not like, I know sometimes you were mentioning Berlin earlier, I'll like click on a Moscow plot and then it's 10 miles away from the city center. But yeah. Are there any sort of future trends that you anticipate? You mentioned like 750 tile plots and, a forest lands a nation like Congo as a possible, undervalued property type. Is there anything else you anticipate?
I think megacities, if run correctly, so if a megacity stays active on their management side, so the people behind it are actively recruiting new people to the city, so that there's actually an active user base on those, because especially the early megacities, there's going to be a lot of people that bought in there that are not going to be active by the time we can actually build buildings. So this is what I thought from the start about megacities. There's going to be, in the center of your cities, there's going to be a lot of empty plots because people are not going to be in the game anymore, or they lost their password, or whatever happens with an early platform. But I do see a big advantage of building megacities. The only disadvantage I see to them is that very often you can't get class 1 in them, and I'm still of the belief that eventually class 2 will be the new what currently is class 1, like affordable yet rare, and class 1 is going to be almost impossible to get at some point if the game makes the growth that I expect it to do. And
Kangy and I had talked about that a bunch, about class 2 being way undervalued.
It is by a lot. But for now, I put all my beliefs now that it's still affordable on class 1. So I don't have that much in megacities because I can't get it class 1.
Right. And that's always been one interesting thing to me about megacities. I wasn't in the game in November for the really, really early cheap tiles in larger nations. But when megacities really started to enter the community, I think as a concept, a lot of those really expensive nations, or the nations that are expensive now, had already been prohibitive, right? You're going to choose something, a lesser known nation in perhaps like Central Africa rather than a capital city in Western Europe that's already full of folks. So that's one interesting thing, is a lot of the megacities are not located in what would be considered popular Earth 1 tourist destinations.
Yeah, definitely.
So talking about megacities, a lot of megacities are tied into guilds. Are you a member of any guilds per se?
When I joined, I was very active on the SHP server, and they helped me along a lot. So I always keep my ties with them close. So in that regard, I could be a part. But I don't necessarily am part of one guild. Like, I am very active helping out with the Kiribati megacity, which is not really a guild, but Laceboy runs it, and it's an interesting city. I've helped build some grids in there and stuff. But I also know a lot of people in Alpha Kingdom, and I like to be part of as many parts of this community as I can. But the people who sort of helped me at the start was SHP, so they have a special place.
And that ties into one other user question. So how do you feel about the success of Earth 2 as a whole? Are you optimistic, or are you just looking to make as much profit as you can while you can?
I'm actually very optimistic. Like I said before, I don't plan to cash out anytime soon. I'm obviously you don't spend 10 hours on something not to gain something from it, right? Like, so I'm not gonna act all heroic and saying, "No, I'm never going to cash anything out." That's not how it works. At some point, I'll cash out some profits, but for now, I still see more benefit in growing my profile compared to cashing out. And even if I would slowly lose a bit of interest in the game or lose my beliefs in it, I would at this point still not really sell and cash out, because I just see huge potential still. And I've not lost any confidence in the devs. There's only the part of the belief I lost a little is with the web dev team. Like I've seen so many bugs and errors in the website, which I have a lot of friends who work in IT, and they've looked at the website with me and they said if they would give me a free go at the code for 2 days, all of these bugs would be fixed.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about the PR. Give me a free go at the PR for a week and I'll have everything fixed.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's there's a couple of those things with PR. The only reason I understand, like, they don't want to, I mean, the public relation part, obviously they can communicate a lot better and everything, but like with not doing too many promotions, I get that. Like even Shane said it yesterday in chat. He said he doesn't want to go viral again right now until things are further along, which I completely understand.
For sure. I just want them to communicate better.
Yeah, the communication parts of PR, yeah, that has a 3 out of 10 on my list.
Yeah.
And same for the website. Like the whole UI could do with an overhaul, especially now that the money is in. Like this is good for an early start, like alpha part of the website. But now that you got 300K users, the way the portfolio has no filters, for instance, to select anything except for sale and not for sale. Some small stuff like that, like a proper web dev team. They Nathaniel said earlier that 14 web devs and growing on the team. Yep. They might be working on stuff that we don't know. So I might be speaking out of terms here, but from what I'm seeing and how long it took to fix the notifications, and they said it was due to something deeper in the code that was linked to other parts of the website. Well, then it was built wrong. Like,
yeah, and they didn't even.
All my IT friends say that can't be the case. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and they didn't even fix the bid thing or the 1 cent bid thing, right? They did it backwards.
Exactly.
Well, and the notifications page, as somebody that knows very little about web development, it was very clear that the reason it was taking forever to load was because it wasn't separated into multiple pages. So any explanation that involves some Byzantine set of code elsewhere in the system, I just don't buy that, because it appears to have been resolved by adding pages. So it's like, I give the team the benefit of the doubt, and I believe very much in the project. But when I hear something like that, like it's hard to not, the suspension of disbelief comes in. Like, I don't really believe you guys.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about before we move on is kind of what has been the topic of the last couple of weeks is GoChain, crypto, Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, but just GoChain and having Earth2 on blockchain. What is your kind of view on that, and how do you think it will help or hurt what you're doing with Earth2?
Well, I love it. Point one, I trade crypto as much as I trade E2 properties. So I love that part of it, even though we don't even know if they're going to be tradable at first or anything like that. But I do think it will bring a lot of value and a lot of interest towards the platform and the game. So I see 100 times more benefits than negatives to it. However, it has to be executed well. And I think GoChain, I've looked into the platform, is a smart choice. There was other options that I would have liked better, but they're probably a lot more expensive, a lot harder to get into, that have already huge projects running on them, etc., etc. GoChain is a very good and obvious choice. But the thing is, if this is going to delay anything big now for months, and then that, like, for instance, if this delays Essence for 2 or 3 months, and then a couple months more for it to be fully integrated and working, you might lose too much of the community. You might have lost too much interest. That's the only fear I have.
Yep, same for me.
I see only positives about the idea, but if they take too long, and especially with current communication being very spotty, then you could have a very inactive community by the time you reach the point. And obviously, if you then start promoting and stuff, it could spark up again. But it would just be a shame if you lose the current community that was there from the start. If they lose their interest, that would be a shame.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to keep those, for the early adopters around, because they, if nothing else, when new folks come in, they can at least sort of validate and speak to the project as it is, because it's still such a unique idea that anybody that, has not entered the crypto or NFT space is, I'm sure, entering with a lot of skepticism. So
yeah,
got to keep the current community around.
One more thing about the whole web, like I said, the web devs should. Have you ever noticed that if you open a tab of Earth 2, it just has the normal Chrome logo on the tab? They don't even have the Earth 2 logo on the tab like any website has.
Yeah, the little, like, your ESPN, or right now what we're recording on, like,
yeah.
Get a little better branding.
I think any web dev could fix that in 10 seconds on the web page. So why isn't that there? It's small things like this, like they have to be on the ball there before they make the next before they go viral again. The website has to be fully functional and working. Otherwise, you're not going to go from 300,000 users to 1 million and have a working system if there's this many bugs and stuff. People will only find more and abuse them, obviously.
Yeah, I think that those are definitely valid concerns. But I mean, hopefully this increased staff, hopefully we'll start to see some of these things get resolved, even if we think they should have already been resolved more quickly.
Yeah, I think we will. I think they're working hard on the background, and I think they'll also see where there has been slack, and they'll hire more people in that direction, etc.
And that was actually one of the things that Shane mentioned in his Discord chat yesterday, and we'll just go ahead and transition into that. He did come onto Discord for 2 hours yesterday, quite the lengthy conversation, and he did mention that they're working on some front-end developments that will allow for the servers to react more quickly and personally. So it does sound like they are working on some things. He did talk about quite a few things yesterday. What was, of all the things he talked about, Mysor, what was most interesting for you?
Well, obviously that he gave at least some clarity about what went wrong with the islands that we spoke about earlier. That was important to me, especially as I helped that many, and I didn't want to put them on market and do whatever with them if I wasn't certain what was going to happen with it. And other than that, he hinted a lot towards GoChain and the crypto, like without officially saying anything.
Yeah,
you could read a lot from his reactions.
Oh yeah, like we have big plans, but we need to get things finalized.
Yeah.
Then what was the one thing? Someone asked if they were going to be if they were going to have their own crypto. He's like, well, we did create a whole new world, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. So in this, and he sounded excited, which I missed a bit, to have an excited dev, especially Shane, but like it could have been anyone.
You know what?
In chat.
It got me excited. I bought freaking Vatican plots because I was excited.
Yeah, same. I bought 500. No, wait, I said it wrong. I bought 5K worth of tiles in South Korea this morning because felt like I could invest a big one again.
Yep, I felt super excited. I feel good about the direction. I've been as big a critic as any of some of the things they do, and I still think they can do some things better, but I think the potential is unlimited.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it's just good to speak to those devs, and he was quite open, more so than some other devs have been in. But like he can, obviously, he's the CEO, so he is. It's easiest for him to determine what is allowed to be said and not. But I think he answered to the best of his possibilities to a lot of stuff, whether all in clear words or not. Like we could read through those messages, right? But also he had fun in there. Like he was also responding to the fun things and stuff. And he just in general sounded very positive and excited about the future, even though he said his own health was suffering a little bit under the workload, which worried me a little. But yeah, the man needs sleep, man. Like, well, I don't sleep a lot, but
Yeah, I joked
Jesus.
about that in an article a week ago. I said,
Yeah.
Shane set a world record for the number of times mentioning how little sleep he has.
Yeah, definitely. I read that. That was funny. And you kept mentioning it during his chat yesterday as well. It was cool.
Yeah, adding to the world record.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope you're keeping a running tab now so that you don't have to go back and check. We've got to track it as we go because those numbers will climb steadily.
The mouse in his desk was a new one for me, which was very enjoyable because I could just see him.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I could just see him be annoyed with that. Like, yeah, cool.
Well, on that note, I mean, was there really anything else that Shane had announced beyond? I know that.
Well, the whole cryptic tweet thing that Meta is so curious about.
Oh, right, the riddle, so to speak.
Yeah, so he did give quite a few hints about that. He said the decrypt is real, but I doubt the latest one will be decrypted correctly for some time. Just a little something I came up with. Some minutes to create, but will take much longer to break. He can't tell people how they can claim it. And is there a prize? Well, if you decrypt it, you'll find out. So he was being more cryptic, as Shane is prone to do.
I honestly still think it's not as much of a riddle. Like, I think people are looking way too deep into this. I think he's literally just referring to the fact that we're all in this early and that we will reap the rewards if we stick with it. That's my interpretation of it from the moment I read it, and it still is now.
That's the first interpretation that they said, yeah, he's just talking common sense. Other people are like looking at the Mormon golden plates and like going off into conspiracy theories. It's fun to watch. I'm not going to go down there because I don't have that kind of time. I'm not going to waste that kind of time looking for some golden egg in the middle of some country where I have no idea where it's at.
Yeah,
I like research. I don't like puzzles.
Yeah, that's my main problem is that the time I would spend unsuccessfully attempting to decode that, I could probably be spending learning about the marketplace or something a little bit more obviously helpful for Earth 2.
Yeah, probably.
So the other thing I did like, they're talking about more payment options, and he said they're working on more options and should have something within the next 4 weeks. So that'll be good.
Yeah, that's actually a big one. He also said about the bug of the double payments in the credit card withdrawals. He said that they were looking into it. They had a partial solved it. Then this morning, a lot of people got paid out. Like the people who were complaining in the withdrawal channel all day, every day. A lot of them said they were paid out. The only thing that worried me, there was still one new case, at least one new case, of someone still getting a double. So I hope it's gone, and I hope they pay out more people because that negativity that caused the slow payments is something we don't need.
Kangy, you had a little progress on your withdrawal too, right?
I did, yeah. As of this morning, yeah, because I submitted my withdrawal. It was either on April 14th or 15th. So it's been a little over 10 days, but it switched from being a queued payout this like on Saturday to over the weekend. It's now like the pending $0 on my account. So I'm not sure yet if it'll get kicked back because I know that was one thing they warned about, but it's they at least obviously tried to process it over the weekend and this morning.
Good. So one other thing before we wrap this up, they did start paying out the Easter egg hunts today. I know Meta got $100 in his account, and I saw some other folks. And Mysor, you said you saw one of the big ones get paid out.
Yeah. As we were talking about it before the show, it's in the off-topic channel in the official Earth 2 Discord. Someone actually linked a screenshot of them receiving 3.5K, so the main prize. So that's good. Like, not only the $100 payouts are being done, but also the main prize winners. So that's being wrapped up, which is good.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And it'll be awesome to see, as I've been blathering about Hazy for weeks here, if we start to see, a little bit more marketplace stimulation with some free money going out to the community, going right into people's accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
Well, Mysor, we do appreciate you coming on the show. Learned a lot. Still probably could talk to you for another hour about flipping, but people have about a 45-minute attention span, and we've already run past that, so we're going to wrap things up here pretty quickly. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, man, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Okay, so I did want to do one last bit of housekeeping. We are still running the My Name is Human Mega City tile giveaway. If you go to earth2news.com, there's an article on there. If you buy just one tile in the Mega City, you will be entered into the drawing that we will run at the end of April. So when April finishes, we'll run the drawing. And we have some big news coming up. We're going to rebrand the website, and going to have a massive giveaway when that happens. So stay tuned for that. When we release a new website and get everything going, I'll announce the details for that giveaway. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks, Mysor, for coming on the show. And Kangy, as always, it's been real.
Oh, it's been an absolute blast, and I cannot wait for that giveaway.
All right. Until next time, this is the My Name is Human Earth2News.com podcast. We are Earth2.io show.
Get up off your knees.